Hello, folks. Here we go again. This is Temi and Sean back having conversations. And for tonight, we have an interesting one, I think. Let my people think.
That's right.
That's what we're going to be talking about. And for the next maybe half hour or so, we're going to expand on what, we're thinking about in letting our people think. What's up, Sean?
Hey, Temi. So this one is interesting, like you say. With this one, we're going to be looking at three different ideas, right? So we're not going to go into too much detail with these particular ideas. We're just gonna, touch on each of those ideas, and then the idea behind this one, the premise behind this one, once again, is just to get a conversation going. These are ideas that people already they're well established ideas. People are very, very familiar with them, but we just trying to, like I said, start a conversation and just give a different, or maybe not so different perspective to these ideas, and then just see, what sort of conversations, develop. So with this particular one, we're going to be discussing three things.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be discussing equality.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be discussing exceptionalism.
Mm-hmm.
And then last but not least, we're going to be discussing defund the police. Right. That is a conversation that's going on right now. So we're going to discuss, defund the police, but, we'll leave that one until last. We can start with, the ideas, surrounding equality.
Yeah. And what are we saying? We're saying these are ongoing things. And just like the topic for the evening, which we've called "Let My People Think," it's a conversation starter. It's an idea builder. It's some of the things that we talk about, or they may not necessarily be the way you see it, but at least you're going to entertain. We want you to entertain another viewpoint. So you can say, not just shout at me and say, "Oh man, you don't know what you're talking about." We want to be able to articulate, a way of thinking that will suggest to somebody else who doesn't think quite like that. Oh yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I disagree, but I understand. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, equality. That is a buzzword. It's
the rallying cry.
Yeah, it's a rallying cry.
Everybody wants equality.
Everybody wants equality.
Yeah.
For me personally, there is more to equality, than there isn't enough. Let me put it let me rephrase it. There isn't enough to equality that gets me super excited. And why do I say that?
Word.
Because equality is, I'm more interested in equity.
Absolutely.
Than equality.
Absolutely.
Equality is, because I never have been able to understand why I would expect another man to tell me you're now equal.
Mm.
It doesn't make it. Okay, thank you. Peace out. So now what?
Now what?
For me, equality proves it. It's something that proves itself.
That's right.
If I'm on the same, if I'm on a level playing field with you, you don't have to tell me I'm equal to you.
It'll prove itself.
It will prove itself.
That's right.
It's not something that you bestow upon me. It's something that comes out of me.
That's right.
Am I inferior? If we're on the same level, if we're on the level playing field, my inferiority, superiority, or equality will prove itself.
Absolutely. You see, to me, this conversation about equality is super important. And I don't think we'll do it justice in the time that we have, but that's fine. Everybody's asking for equality, but to me, equality is a limited hangout. Equality does not necessitate the sort of introspection that is needed to cure the ills of Black people. Equality does not necessitate the sort of action that is necessary for us to get to where we need to get to. In fact, equality presupposes, and this is the annoying thing, equality presupposes that me and you, we need the same thing. But we don't.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I don't need the same education as you. My education, my educational needs in a country that for 400 years has told me I am nothing cannot be the same educational needs of a child that was raised in a system developed to uplift him. So how can I be equal with you? So for 400 years, these two boys have been listening to the same thing. One system tells one of the boys, you're the best thing since sliced bread. The next thing is telling the other boy,
you suck.
You suck.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me you're going to give them both equality. I mean, get out of here.
Equality, in a way, some people might listen to this and say, you guys are, it's probably semantics, or you guys are, somebody might actually say, dude, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. Because, again, like we said, like we preface this whole thing, it's only what we're doing here in this conversation is just throwing another thought out there. Because for now, the way I look at it sometimes, right? I'm like, I understand, there is this, the fight is ongoing right now. Equality. Let's get equality. What is this? At what point in time, do you now say we've gotten what we want, so the struggle ends? So
it ends.
Yes. So how do you now derive an end to, if is it somebody now standing up on a podium and say, you're all equal, and then we say we have it? Or is this is it a continuing battle and the goalpost keeps getting moved each and every time?
That's right.
To me, striving for equality, just like Sean just said, I'm just using the example of education, of not necessarily, looking for the same kind of education as everybody else. Equality in that in the context of what we're striving for right now becomes an endless strive.
Yeah.
But if equity, on the other hand, is quantifiable.
Yes.
We know what time and actions have deprived us of.
Yes.
And so we're saying, I don't care how you call it or whatever, bring me up to speed
to where you are. And then
let me prove to you
that I'm equal to you. In other words, equality, right, almost presupposes that everybody starts from the same place and that everybody needs the same thing. But equity, and that's not true, by the way, equity meets you where you are. The Sankofa symbol for the heart, right, that, everybody now calls that the bird.
Yes.
It means go back and get it.
Yes.
Go back and get it. Go back and get what? What we're saying is equity goes much further than equality. Equity says, look, for 400 years, these guys have been held back. We need to figure out a way, like Temi said, to bring them up to speed.
That's the bottom line.
We can quantify what we deprive them of. We know exactly what we need to get them closer to the mark. Once we do that, then we can talk about equality. This conversation about equality reminds me of maybe, it's analogous to two people racing, right? The way the American system has worked so far is there's a certain group of people, right? This is a 100-yard dash, right? There's a certain group of people, they're already on the 90-yard line. And I'm on the 0-yard line with weights tied to my feet. It's equal in the sense that we're on the same field, but is that really equitable?
No, it's not.
This guy has had all the advantages for the longest time. And the problem with this conversation is a lot of people, especially in the black community, say, well, we don't want to see things that way because that means we're playing victim. And I say no. Simply acknowledging what has been done to you is not you playing victim. Simply acknowledging what has been done to you is you just acknowledging a truth.
Yeah.
Whether you want to admit it or not, this was done to us. And yes, in this system, some black people have fared better than other black people. Yes, they have. And kudos to them. Nobody is denying your agency. My question is, how much more would you have done if you didn't have those shackles on your feet?
That's the question right there.
And that's equity. Equity will meet you at the point that you are. Equity will say, first of all, I need to debug your operating system because your operating system is full of nonsense that I need to take out. I am not going to add additional information on an already bugged system. That's equity. So the first thing you need to do for us as Africans in this country is you need to debug our operating system of all the nonsense that you've put there. That's equity.
That's equity.
Second of all, you then need to give us a proper stake at the table. That's equity, right? Thirdly, you then need to acknowledge what you did. And that's the problem with equity. Because when you talk about equity, you're talking about an acknowledgement of what's taking place. Here's the kicker. America has never lied to us about who she is. We're the ones that refuse to believe America. So when America puts something like equality on the table, you need to ask yourself, if she's willing to put equality on the table, what isn't she willing to put on the table?
That's the equity.
Equity.
That level playing field.
Equity.
It costs.
It costs.
Yes.
It doesn't cost anything to say, okay, well, now we're equal. I'll give you an example. I used to be in real estate. And the best example I have is two guys have a house. One worked to buy the house. Right? The house is worth $2 million. Only one guy owns the house. Not the guy that worked to earn the money. The other guy. He owns the house. So he owns the equity of that house. That house is worth $2 million. But that $2 million only belongs to one guy. The house now earns, let's say, $50,000 every year in rent. Equality is that guy saying, I will share the rent with you. That's equality. Equity says, nah, dog, guess what?
$2 million.
How much
they don't put into this thing?
How much does this house, is it worth? How much interest have you made on this house? How much money is this house actually worth?
That's right.
Give me my share of that. That's equity.
That's equity.
Because the problem with equity is this. Once you give me equity, I may decide I no longer want to be in this house.
Equity is freedom.
It's freedom.
Yeah.
Equity is freedom. In my opinion, equality is just a limited hangout.
Yeah, man, that is so well put. And that is actually the point of that. There's equity versus You know, but I want, our guys listening to this conversation, not to get or to get it twisted that for Sean and Temi are saying equality is a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
No, equality is not necessarily. We're not saying it's a bad thing. We're just saying, let my people think about this a little bit. Equality is not quite enough.
It's not.
Equality doesn't get you to where you want to be.
It doesn't. Or repair you from where you've come from. Equality says, let us continue now.
Yes, equality is so convenient because it's so convenient because especially when the past,
it's so inconvenient.
It's so painful.
Yeah.
So it is easy to say, okay, let's start from here and move on. But the problem is you do not necessarily give up what you had in the past. If my stuff from the past is baggage, I still have it.
That's right.
And if yours is diamonds and pearls, you still have it.
You still have it.
Then how the heck can you now say that we're equal because some dude said, we're not equal?
Somehow or the other, to your point, for this to work, we need to go back. And you see that baggage that I have?
Yeah.
You and I need to figure out how we're going to share this baggage.
That's right.
And those diamonds and pearls that you have,
you're daggone well.
we need to figure out a way to share that too.
That's right.
That's equity.
That's equity.
And until we get there, I just think that I don't want my people to be disillusioned with the fact that equality is utopia. Equality will prove itself out.
That's my point.
Once you've rectified the equity.
The equity.
That's it.
Yeah. Because I am so confident in the ability of my people.
Oh, absolutely.
So that is why, I don't shy away from the fact that on a level playing field, the equality will prove itself.
And you know what I love about that? It actually segues us very, very nicely into the next conversation about exceptionalism.
Mm-hmm.
So exceptionalism is the study of the unique and the exceptional. It's like a theory that a nation, a people is exceptional because they don't conform to the norms or to the rules. It was interesting. I was reading Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, where she reveals, not that we don't know, but that there's no justice in the American, penal justice system. But what was funny, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, was she explains how white America defends itself and argues that racism and the racial caste in America is dead and buried because we have exceptional people like Oprah and Barack Obama. Their argument is, if racism and all these things still existed, then how are we birthing such exceptional people? And that to me is a case of somebody trying to have their cake and eat it.
Mm.
You set up a system, right, that is predicated on keeping one people down while elevating another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
This system was in place for centuries. I think we should no longer argue about whether or not that system worked. And oh, by the way, it's now 2020. Anybody that looks at a black person and says that the only thing they need to do is pull themselves up by their bootstraps, I am sorry, you're a racist. You know what I'm saying? You like miss me with that bootstrap nonsense.
And my thoughts on my thoughts on those crazy bootstraps.
Miss me with that bootstrap thing.
That is such a bogus argument, man, because like I told you, we've talked about, my mind always, pictures and dramatizes, these bootstraps, and the way my concept of it is, The guy who's telling me to pull myself up by the bootstraps, right? He's the one that makes and sells
Bootstraps.
these bootstraps.
That's right.
And you know how you pull bootstraps up? You know, you put it through the eyelets and everything, and you pull on the bootstraps.
He sold you some bogus bootstraps.
Yeah, and the bootstraps always breaks in my hands. Guess what happens after the break? Go back to your store and buy another set of bootstraps, right?
That's right.
You keep getting rich, and I keep getting poorer, breaking bootstraps. So no, I that bootstrap stuff, man, it's a very, very weak way of talking to me.
So they set the system up, right? And the system worked. It did work. If it didn't work, we would not be having the conversation that we're having, right now. So what is this system? What is this system, right? It is a system that says we're going to educate you badly, we're going to mistreat you, and that's me being very, very generous. We're going to get rid of your history. We're going to put 9 levels of hells on you. In other words, it's a system that is designed to ensure that you don't thrive. It is a system that is designed to ensure that you don't live, let alone strive. It is a system that has decided that you are going to be the permanent underclass. Right?
Right.
And this system works, right? So, we can name all the different things that they did, the GI Bill, redlining laws, the Dawes Roll. Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Okay. So they deploy this system on free black people that they kidnapped, brought here, tortured, raped, subjugated, and then put into slavery. But those people didn't break. They absorbed everything that you gave them. And what did they give you in turn? They gave you blues, jazz, southern food, hip hop.
By the way, blues and jazz are the only 2 original American art forms. You know that?
Right?
Yeah.
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, ain't that crazy?
They gave you a way of dressing. They gave you swagger. They gave you style. Everything that they gave you comes out of the hell that you gave them. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, you know what? That is truly exceptional. Because the system was designed to break you. But you didn't break.
Why? You must be exceptional.
You must be exceptional. So I was thinking about this thing that they're always telling me about American exceptionalism. And a thought occurred to me. Were they talking about black people? Because let's be honest. If your father is rich, chances are you're going to be rich. Yes or no?
True.
If your father plays baseball or basketball or something, is a professor, this, that, and the third, chances are you're going to live in some kind of relative comfort, right? True. But if you come from nothing, in a system that tells you you're nothing, and you make yourself something, you've literally come from one state to the other. You must be
exceptional.
Exceptional.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Let my people think. That's a way of looking at exceptionalism.
Yeah.
But again, not to mince words or anything. American exceptionalism, the concept of it, it's actually not quite. They're not looking at black people.
They're not
saying that.
They're not.
Yeah, they're looking at the reason why America is, different from everybody else, the reason why what applies to some other countries will not apply to America, because we are exceptional. You know, I'm not saying, you know, my thing about, you know, black except, you know, the exceptionalism of the black person, you know, to me, it's a little more concrete because I can actually see it.
That's right.
You know, I can see the subjugation, I can see the adversity, and I can understand that if under all things being equal,
That's right.
you should be broken.
You should be broken.
Yeah. So let my people think. You know, now when you are not broken, when you're supposed to be broken, you know, now see the exceptionalism as not something to brag about, but something to actually encourage you to know your worth.
Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, the outliers like, you know, the Michael Jordans or the LeBron James or the Barack Obamas or the Oprah Winfreys. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the hoi polloi. I'm talking about the average person, the average black person who
All of this
puts his kids through school.
Yes.
I'm talking about the rose that grows in concrete. I'm talking about the millions of black people who live and breathe this oppressive system. And yet, somehow, they still live.
Still would grow.
That, to me, is what's exceptional. And when I read the book about, you know, the new Jim Crow, those were the thoughts that came to mind. I completely agree with you. It's not the way that America views it, but to me, America uses the word exceptionalism as an excuse for why she does the things she does. And if that's the case, I can then look at that word in connection with my people and say, what you designed as a system to destroy my people did not work. It worked for so many others. I'm not going to sit here and lie. It worked for so many others. A lot of us are bent and broken. A lot of us have given up for different reasons. We have. And yet, so many of us have not. And we're still here. We're still a people. We're still doing it. And I don't know what you'd call that, but exceptional. All right, so the last topic is also a very, very popular one. And I may actually lose some friends over this one. And this is one that has been coming for a while. It is this idea of defunding the police. You know, right now, because of what's going on, you know, with, you know, everybody protesting, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, all the issues, you know, surrounding the killing of unarmed, you know, blacks, you know, males and females, at the hands of police, you know, the question of whether or not, you know, there's an overutilization of force, you know, by the police, and whether there's a disconnect between the police and the people that they're policing. You know, this conversation has come up about defunding the police, and I think, you know, people have gone to their corners about this. You know, with extremists saying that, you know, the idea that you defund the police means that, you know, you're an anarchist and that you don't believe in law and order and things of that general nature. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, you know, it's a choice. It's a matter of choice of words. You know, for me personally, I think I actually believe more in using the word reforming than defunding. You know, but in having read, you know, a lot of the arguments and the statements that have been put forward by, you know, the advocates of, you know, defunding the police, you know, I've yet to actually hear a reasonable, you know, point of view that says, you know, create a society where there are no sets of people that, you know, uphold law and order. For me, where I think when I think about defunding the police, I think it becomes a little more palatable when one understands what the creation of the police has always been. You know, the creation of the police, what were they actually created to be? You know, the police was actually was originally a tool to suppress people.
Absolutely.
You know, so if one comes from that understanding, then defunding the police begins to take a whole different meaning. It's not saying, no more police or all police are bad or whatever. It becomes an idea of, understanding that the way this institution was created was not necessarily in my best interest. So moving forward, we need to revise. We need to now begin to restructure some things about how this institution functions.
Absolutely.
To me, that is what when I hear defund the police, that is what I take from it. But in my mind, when I hear that word defund, I'm actually understanding reform.
Yeah.
I've not thought it through. Can let my people think. I've not thought it through whether it means changing the name. To me, the name doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. You can change the name of anything, but if its function doesn't change, the implementations or whatever those institutions were formed to be, if the core structures don't change, they keep doing what it was that they were doing in the first place. So a reformation, a reorganization, a re-education, but within the force itself and us as a larger society to understand, we need to begin to interact and begin to live together in a different environment, a different structure within a different structure. You cannot now say, I'm going to call 911 that my neighbor who has some, who is, mentally challenged or having some issues like that. I call 911 and they send, policemen over to do it, for somebody having those kind of issues, tendencies, is end up somebody being dead. There are different kinds of people that you should be able to send, to attend to that kind of situation.
So for me, I've always said that you can never take a snapshot of anything and say that you completely understand that thing. The deep see well. I keep on saying that. And for you to see properly, you need to start at the genesis of a thing. You need to start at the beginning of a thing. Because when you start at the beginning of a thing, then you get more context into what you're talking about. And I'm also a proponent. I've always said this. If your genesis is bad, your revelation is going to be messed up. If your genesis is bad, if your beginning is bad, your end is going to be bad as well. I do not see how you repair a bad beginning. So why am I saying this as concerns the police? So in America, right, the police force here was formed around about the same time that the police force was being formed in England. As a matter of fact, funny story, the guy that formed the police in England, his name was Robert Peel. And because of that, they called the police over there Barbies. I've always found that a very, very funny story. They either call them Barbies or they call them Peelers. In the South, in the American South, when the police were first formed, they were called either the Watch or something else. And they had three things that they needed to do. The first one was to chase down, apprehend, and return slaves to their owners. The second was to provide a form of organized terror to keep the slaves in check. And then the third was to maintain a form of discipline. And they also meted out like summary justice or things like that. Then there was now a fourth. The fourth came later, and that was for them to protect the interests of the rich. So that's how the police here first came. Why is that my starting point? So that's my starting point because we know for a fact that these police were often complicit and stood back when blacks were being hung or lynched. This police force, right? Sometimes they actually gave the key to the jail room to these guys to come
and take them out
and lynch them.
Yeah.
We know that, during the Oklahoma City bombing, the police were involved in that. By and large, the people that made up these early versions of the police, they were not the smartest or the brightest members of their own society. Why is that important? I'll tell you why that's important. The people that made up these police forces came not from the upper to middle class. They came almost from the lower classes. They became a buffer between the haves and the people that have been relegated as being the bottom, the blacks. Now, can you imagine the kind of power you just gave to a people that don't have any power in their own society? In their own society, they're not well regarded because they're not that educated, they're not that smart, they're not movers of industry. No, but you've now put them in a police force. You've just given authority to a person over another person
who had none.
Now, can you imagine how he utilized that authority? We have too many examples to list. But what I will tell you is the early version of the police, they were corrupt and they were susceptible to bribes. Why am I saying this? I need you to understand the optics. I need you to understand how we have always seen them. Officer Johnson to us was a murdering bastard. Officer Johnson to us was not a nice guy. The way Officer Johnson would police in the white neighborhood was quite different from the way Officer Johnson would police in the black neighborhoods. Optics.
That's right. That's right.
And I'll say something else. We've never called it wrong. We've never called it wrong. Every time we went and we complained about these guys, the issue was always, you must have done something wrong. You must have done something wrong. The only reason we're having these conversations now is that the spin has finally caught up with the sin. There used to be a time in America when sins would just happen. But by the time the narrative of that sin came out, there'll be a spin in place to explain it. So America, especially white America, would focus on the spin. They never focused on the sin. But now, the sin and the spin are happening simultaneously. As they're doing it, they're trying to explain it. Now, all of a sudden, their explanations don't make any sense. So guess what we're focusing on now? Now we're focusing on the sin.
At least we're seeing it.
We're seeing it now. All of a sudden, white America is now saying, well, hang on a minute. These guys have always called it right. We were never wrong. Think Rodney King. Think Sandra Bland. Think Philando Castile. Think every single one of it. Think the civil rights movement. Think of them sicking dogs on kids, water hoses. The police force has always been the blunt instrument that has been used to beat the black populace into submission. We've never called it wrong. Fast forward 2020, it's still happening. Fast forward 2020, there's still a tone deafness.
So, Sean, what do you understand or what do you mean when you say defund the police? What does that mean?
I'm saying that to move ahead in this society, the police force, the way it's currently constituted, needs to be abolished. You need to police locally. You can no longer import police in from other jurisdictions into a neighborhood where they have no affinity. When you do that, what you're doing is you're bringing jailers in. When a policeman that has no affinity with Baltimore City goes and polices in Baltimore City, his only bailiwick, his marching orders is keep these guys in. Now, you may not see the bars, you may not see the walls, but what I just described to you was what? I just described a jail to you. But if the person that's policing you grew up in that neighborhood, if the person policing you understands that that is Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Jefferson is a bit deaf in his left ear. If I was to call Mr. Jefferson and he doesn't answer me, my next move is not to shoot him. If you police locally, you understand that, oh, that is Aiden. Aiden is 13 years old. He just happens to be tall and he plays basketball. What does that mean? It means that if I was to encounter Aiden, I would not treat him like a man and think to shoot him. The optics of the police, the way it is currently constituted, needs to be changed because there is no trust between them and my people. And if you're going to get my people to buy in, you need to completely change the way this thing has been done. I'm going to say something. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was concerned because I said that all cops are bad. He didn't like me saying that. And I said this to him. I said, the problem is you're looking at cops as individuals. I'm not looking at cops as individuals. I am looking at the institution. Do you have individual policemen trying to do good? Yes. But they've not been able to stop what the police as an institution has done, have they? So if you as a person, if you sign on to the police, what are you doing? You're co-signing what they do. If you are a good policeman and you keep your mouth shut while you see atrocities being committed near you, now you didn't do it, but guess what? You're culpable.
That's right.
So to me, defund the police is another excellent example. It's another excellent chance that we have to try to recalibrate the conversation that we're having as Americans. And I don't want us to leave the table without getting everything we're trying to get. The problem is this: people are playing semantics and they're also pulling on heartstrings. They're calling, they're being emotional. I'm not going to be emotional about this. You guys are killing people. The false equivalence that you give me doesn't work for me. You're killing people. You are overpowered. You have too much power. You've developed this us versus them mentality, where to you, every black person is a target. And if they don't comply, if they don't obey your authority, the next thing for you to do is to what? Is to shoot them. Without understanding that the authority that you have was given to you by society, which we happen to be a part of.
That's right.
So yes, I am a big proponent of defund the police. I'm going to say one more thing and I'm going to keep quiet. I can tell you the story about a guy called Kevin. Kevin's a nice guy. Kevin's for all intents and purposes, he's a nice guy, right? But Kevin is a bit lonely, isn't he? So he wants friends. And he has the opportunity to join this group of people who have sing songs, they have a barbecue, they get together and then they have activities, mainly at night. And Kevin is down with that. So Kevin joins this group, right? He then realizes, hang on a minute, this group is the KKK. Now, Kevin is not down for them like lynching people. He doesn't go when they do that. He doesn't go when they do all this atrocious stuff. He just goes along for the barbecue and
the socializing.
The socializing. Is Kevin a good guy? He belongs to the cake? No. That is my point. The police have always been a terrorist organization to us. You pointing out individual people in a terrorist organization does not change the way I see that organization. And yes, people will say to me, well, you're comparing the police with the KKK. There was a report that came out by the FBI some years ago that said that the KKK was infiltrating whole police forces. So yes, I can say that the police, to me, reminds me of the KKK because the FBI said that they were infiltrated by them. So what am I saying? I am saying that the police, as necessary as they are, and please hear me well, as necessary as they are, cannot be allowed to continue in its current form. It's given too much power to individuals who have for centuries abused it. And us allowing them to continue is us saying that you can keep doing the same thing and get a different outcome. But we know that to be insanity, don't we?
So, in having said that, who or why would you use defund instead of reform? Why am I asking this question? In trying to actually effect a change, why don't you? Why be confrontational on it? Why do you actually go out of your way, to be controversial about the thing that you are trying to do?
You don't negotiate with cancer, do you?
No, you don't negotiate with cancer.
Okay, good. The police force has been a cancer to the black.
But what you're saying, though, what you just said, again, let my people think, right? You haven't said, what does, when you say defund, the connotation, the idea, right? By the average guy, especially one who is not a black person, right? Who is not directly affected by the atrocities of this force, who see the police, right, as an ally, but who is now beginning to see things from your point of view, and they're trying to partner with you. Then you now use the word defund the police. You know what I mean? Why use that? I mean, why not use the word that actually describes what you're trying to do so that you can have a greater buy-in?
I mean, I think for me, just like you, I am not so hung up on the terminologies used.
Yeah, but it's not us.
I know. Reform or defund. What I'm saying is this conversation has gotten us to a table right now. And there's conversations going on, necessary conversations going on, right? The reason why I like the word defund is because it's going to affect some people's pockets. And what we're saying is if you do not reform or completely overhaul this thing, it's going to affect your economics. And we know that in America, unless and until it affects your economics, people don't move.
People don't move.
That's why I like that word. Reform, to me, is what's going to have to happen. But in order to reform, the threat of being defunded must not be allowed to leave the table.
Do you know why I personally like the word defund?
Tell me.
It's because it creates conflict. Yeah. And I believe that nothing changes without conflict.
Absolutely.
Especially when something that you are trying to change has an oppressive force,
yes,
a subjugating force, and a taking without giving force.
That's right.
The only way that you can actually change this is by confrontation and conflict. And so to me, the word defund is actually what is bringing people to the table.
Absolutely.
Because even though it creates tension and puts people on edge, it actually gets things done more than being buddy and hey, what's up? Hey, what's up doesn't change anything.
No, it doesn't.
It actually perpetuates the status quo.
Hey, yo, here's the message to the king. Listen, I think you guys are exceptional. Don't stop at equality. We want you to strive for equity. And keep doing what you're doing. We're very proud of you. Peace.
God bless.